Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Collecting Keys Mike and Dan show, where I, Mike DeHaan, and my co-host here, Dan Austin, talk about real estate, business, investing, and everything else in between. So, Dan, we have an epidemic right now, though. This is a big pet peeve of mine that has been going on extensively, and it's the most it's a very interesting, indicative thing. Of kind of just like the time we're in, where everyone is trying to consume as much as possible and be as like optimized as possible, without actually like having to do anything, right? So anyone who has been on Zoom calls over the last like little bit, if you're involved in the industry communities like Dan and I are, what is with the Otter bots, dude?
Otter.ai bots in every Zoom call. I have a couple. So I have a couple theories on this. One, 99.9999% of people with Otter.ai don't actually know how to use it or know how to make it work, and they have no idea it's going to meetings without them. Honestly,
yeah, probably.
Like that's most people that they heard, they're like, oh, Otter.ai, it will transcribe my whole meeting. Okay, so they get it. And the second thing I have is that nobody actually goes back and reads the transcript. Why would you read the transcript?
Of course they don't. Yeah. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, first off, you should get involved in more business groups because you will know instantly. Oh, yeah. But basically right now, you hop into any sort of Zoom call that has, a larger presence of, I would say, like, business people, whatever, and you'll get these little attendees that will say like, Mike's Otter.ai, and it's this platform you can get that will go to your meetings for you. It will listen to the meeting. It's supposed to like take notes and give a transcript for the entire thing.
It's highly accurate.
And I signed up.
It's good.
It does a good job. And I signed up for an account, signed up for it, read like the little getting started with this, how it works, went and like set it up so that it only goes to my instant investor program group coaching calls, right? So that way we can have some general notes that we can put into our like the records for the meetings and all that sort of stuff, because we record all the group coaching calls. And so that's good. But I go on some of these meetings I'm on, there's like 11 different Otter.
There's 3 people in the meeting and 11 Otter AIs.
Yeah, but the problem is that happens because when you go to set it up, if you don't tell it to not go to all of your meetings, then it goes to all of your meetings. So I think you're completely right. A lot of people don't realize it's doing that. But then here's even the more annoying thing is there are people that are skipping meetings because they're going to pretend like they're going to review the transcript, so attendance is dropped. And also, too, after the fact, every single Otter AI emails everybody on the meeting with the notes.
The funny thing is they're slightly different, though, if you notice that.
Emails.
They're are, yeah. Different. Yeah, I've looked at that before. Because, that is frustrating. Like, after the meeting, and everybody's Otter AI emails you. And the other thing I was thinking about with Zoom, at least, shouldn't you be able to restrict those members? Like, only let so many people admit attendees? Can you restrict the Otter AIs, do you think?
I don't think you can right now because this is a thing that only started like 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. Like Otter AI, I've heard and used Otter AI for like a year, but it feels like literally the last month, all of a sudden people know what it is.
Yeah, and it's everywhere, and it's just a funny thing that, like I said, I think it's just like the new technology. It's people that are trying to consume as much, because like for all the people that don't know this happening, I guarantee you there's a ton of others that are like, oh, I'm not going to go to that meeting. I'm going to leave me double booked, because then it'll record and then I can, be
productive,
like review the notes on the meeting. But the problem is you have half the attendees doing that. You might as well not even take notes, because the quality of the meeting is going to drop significantly when there's people there to have a freaking conversation.
Unless the robots the robots start talking to each other. And I will say I was in a meeting where there was quite a few Otter AIs recently, and the host actually mentioned how he was having a meeting, and he said a one-on-one, right? And he said, hey, let's take this offline. Let's just chat on our cell phones. Mm-hmm. Calls him on the cell phone. After the meeting time, the Otter AI gave him a transcript to the meeting with their call. How?
Which
I don't know.
Like he must have it on his phone.
He has to have it on his phone, but he didn't use if if I called you on my cell phone, would you expect your Otter.ai to record the conversation? Because I'm calling your number. Exactly.
No.
So and what it said though was, hey, low audio volume, and said that they can't like guarantee the quality. So my guess is, because he was in his office, the microphone was still on through Otterai, even though the meeting was closed out, right? And so it was still picking it up from a microphone.
That's crazy. And what it probably did too is it probably figured out, it's like, oh, you're going to go on the phone now. I'm going to keep listening. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are fully embracing this because of the, the ability that it has, like the capabilities that it presents. But man, we are everyone was worried about Big Brother before. Big Brother
the government now has a robot that can actually do a job better than the government can. And so they can really listen to you. And then like, man, imagine if they had this during like 9/11 after, what was that rule? It was like the Patriot Act or whatever they call that. Yeah. Where they were like, we can listen to all your phone calls. Like now they actually have a way to listen to it and actually process the information very quickly.
And not only that, but everyone is opting into it and everyone is paying for it.
Right, exactly. Yep. Wow.
And anyone who thinks that isn't happening, I'm sorry, but you're ignorant.
Right. You ignorant.
Yeah. The second that, this company started doing this, I mean, probably even way before it, the government was like, hey, so what if we gave you like a shit ton of money, right, and let you kind of like do whatever you want with your taxes? Would you be interested in giving us that? And they were like, yep,
done.
Absolutely.
I still think the government created Bitcoin.
Why do you say that?
Well, because there's this like person that doesn't exist named Satoshi, right? Yeah. I think the government created it for a reason. Like, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but who in this world would create something and not tell you?
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, I don't think it's true.
I mean, I don't think it was the government necessarily. I think that it was a group of CIA. Kind of anti-establishment people that set it up.
Anti-establishment,
and never really
intended
intended for it to become
going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, it will now over like the long term. But dude, it's been around since like 2008. Nobody in the government is that long term thinking.
I think they were, man. I don't think they meant it to be what it is, though. I think they meant to do it as a way to actually track black market transactions and find people.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Because here's the thing: is like the whole pitch on Bitcoin doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like it doesn't make any. They're like, well, this is a decentralized mechanism, and it's like, yeah, but then like most people lose their money because it gets stolen from a centralized platform that trades.
Well, now that's 15 years later. So back when it started, that was not the intended purpose at all. I mean, it's because it became institutionalized. I don't know. That's something that we'll have to disagree on because I think that it was mostly anti-establishment people that put that together.
That's the dream they want you to think, man.
I mean, so I think it's the dream that they want you to think and that they started with, but that's not what it turned into because things don't actually function that way. You can't actually have anti-establishment things like that in a society where everyone relies on the establishment.
Exactly.
I mean, for infrastructure, so general security, every sort of transaction, all logistics, that's all managed through the government, through the larger establishment, right? You try to take the currency away from that, it's not going to work.
And there's a handful of people in the system, which we all know the CIA is good at like making money on the black market by like selling cocaine and stuff and like being cocaine runners through South America, Central America. So now they just got away where like we don't even have to have cocaine anymore. We can just have this thing called Bitcoin and we can do this whole pump and dump thing and we can take all these sorry ass people that lost all their money, we'll take their money and that'll fund our CIA black operations.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I guess it is funny because you look at where Bitcoin has been popular. It's places that the CIA has actively destabilized.
See? I'm telling you, man. There's some wild shit. And there's reasons why places like China are like, nope, can't have that.
Yeah, right.
So,
oh, man.
Anyhow.
China, that's a whole other thing. I know. It's all right. China. What do you think? We're not going to talk about real estate today, apparently. What do you think about all the Chinese weather balloon stuff right now? This is the other thing that is incredibly fascinating to me. Every time there's super, and this is me being a conspiracy theorist now, every time there's something that seems outlandish that falls into the news that ends up not being that big of a deal, like the weather balloon thing, I'm always convinced that they are making this a bigger deal so that you watch the left hand so you don't see what the right hand is doing.
Yeah, I concur. I don't know anything about the Chinese balloon thing, whether it's from China actually or that it was actually a weather balloon. I find it highly suspicious, one, okay, let's start they shot one down with a Sidewinder missile that cost $400,000 to shoot, and it's a balloon. All you got to do is poke a hole in it, right? They freaking destroy
I think they're a little bit more robust than that.
But really, honestly, it's like a hot air balloon. It's a hot air balloon essentially, right? But it's got whatever. I don't know what they're using to. Like I said, I don't know anything about like the helium or whatever. But like the ones that they sent over, I suspect the pictures I saw, anyways. I don't know if these are real pictures. Who the fuck knows? Like it was like huge, right? So it's not like a weather balloon where you fill it up with helium and it goes up. Like they launch those all the time, right? That's like normal. But what I don't understand is why they shot it with a $400,000 missile. I mean, it would be pretty cool to do if you're the pilot, when you could have just used your cannons to poke holes in it. Second thing is, why are they not recovering it if it's actually a spy balloon? Wouldn't they want to actually recover and understand like what this is? And then they could say, hey, American public, this actually wasn't a spy balloon. This was some other crap.
I think they did recover it though, didn't they? Because they shot it down over North Carolina.
No, but they've shot down several now. Did you know that
Well,
we're on
so
like a
the
shooting
other ones-
spree now?
Yes, but the other 3 they're saying were actually privately owned, and they were, quote, not what they say. At first they said they were not ruling out extraterrestrials, and now they're saying that it's not tied to extraterrestrials, which makes me think that it is tied to extraterrestrials.
A balloon,
Basically
though?
everything.
A balloon, though?
No, I don't know, man. No, because the other ones that they weren't balloons. They were unknown objects that were basically holding position in the air or something. I don't know, dude. I'm like
I think
everyone
what
else.
happened is like
news from Instagram at
here's
this
my
point.
belief, because like I'm usually not a conspiracy theorist because I think the government's too dumb to run on a conspiracy, right? Kind of like your point earlier on Bitcoin. And so what I think probably happened is like the Space Force and or Air Force, whoever's in charge of like making sure that we don't have people coming in, like flying into our airspace without knowledge. I think they're on high alert now, and there's just some cowboys out there. They're like, I'm going to get a kill. I'm going to shoot a balloon down, and I'm going to be a hero. And now they're just shooting everything in the sky.
Maybe.
Right? Because you're leaving it up to like a single person to make these decisions a lot of times, right? Like on the moment when it comes to that. And so it's like I would. I'm like, if I could shoot a missile at something, I would. And someone's like, yeah, if you feel danger, it's coming right for me. Had to shoot it with a missile. I would.
I mean, I don't know, dude. I think it's all just positioning, though. If you think about all the nonsense with it, because it went all the way across the United States.
Yeah.
Finally, it gets over into like the red states, and they're like, "Bam, we're gonna get it. We'll stick it to China."
Yeah, we got them.
You know, yeah. All the liberal ones in the middle, they're not gonna be brave enough to do it, but we will.
Well, maybe.
I hate.
So you're saying, was it shut down? Was it North Carolina? Is that where Nikki Haley is? Was she the governor? Is it North Carolina or is she South Carolina?
I don't know, man. You're speaking a language.
So
I don't
now,
even know.
well, she
I don't
just
know any
announced that
reps.
she's going to run
just
for
douchebag 1, douchebag.
She's
2.
going to announce that she runs for president. So maybe that ties into the conspiracy.
Oh God, no,
I don't know, man.
Here. Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know. All right, well, let's switch to real estate. I hate politics. I like the outrage that people have, and the fact that people get so into these things.
Mm-hmm.
I find it extraordinarily fascinating. It's like it's the tribal mentality that we now have that exists in our virtual world, right? And like it's makes it so easy to control the general population.
Right.
You know, if you look at it, it's incredibly brilliant how it's sort of, you know, from like the higher end, how it's sort of built out. But the problem is what it does is it creates a bunch of noise and a bunch of distraction, and nobody focuses on things that actually matter, like how everyone can go and buy houses and become wealthy if they work hard enough.
Yeah, that's too much work. Elon Musk is building houses. Did you see that? That's actually pretty legit.
Is he building a house?
No, he's building houses. So he is partnered with Lennar in home builders in, I think, Austin, where they have the Gigafactory. And so he's now building workforce housing.
Oh, for his people.
For his people.
Yeah. Well, so what happens when that workforce housing drives into oncoming traffic because the self-driving doesn't work correctly?
Right. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I just think that's interesting. It's like that's like a very like old way of doing things, right? Is like big businesses that would come in and basically take over a town because they're so big, or the town was created because of a business. Maybe it's a factory, maybe it's a logging industry, a lumber industry, where they have like to be out somewhere, and then they would build all these houses because people would have nowhere to live. And so then as the employee, now you're paying, the company pays you a paycheck to do work, but then you have to pay for the house, and then you have to pay for the food because like back in the 70s and those time frames where like you would have like say a sawmill out in the middle of nowhere. They would have the company would own the grocery store, the company would own the housing, the company would own basically the town. There'd be like 2,000 people living in the middle of the woods in a proper town with paved roads and everything, right? And so like it's kind of an interesting model. So is it more of an investment for Tesla to do that because they're just going to get their paychecks back?
It's funny. So that's like going back to like feudal times. So if you ever go and tour any part of Europe, like you'll see a lot of repeated patterns of that, where there will be like the local entrepreneur that owned the construction company that was building the house in the church, and exactly like you described, they also owned the pub, they also owned the markets, they also own those sort of things. And what happens is exactly that: is they pay the people go to their store, give them their money right back, and it basically becomes this cycle where the person at the top can just like basically never have an actual expense.
Because it's like if you think about it as like a capital investment, you're going to spend say $1 billion of profits on building houses that you then mortgage to the people at say 5%. Now you're basically, instead of going and issuing debt at 5%, you're issuing debt basically in houses and you're mortgaging them to these people. And then you also get the appreciation of that. So maybe over a 5-year period, maybe instead of just getting the 5% debt, you're getting like 6, 7, 8, 10%, maybe more because it's Austin, in appreciation of the asset value. So it's a good investment for Tesla, my opinion.
I mean, it would be interesting to see what that fundamentally looks like at the numbers, because when you get to that scale as well, 1% difference on your margin can be
massive,
incredibly huge, massive. Yep. And they have whole finance teams that have 8-figure overheads just for staff that they pay to analyze all that stuff and figure out.
Yep. It speaks a lot, in my opinion, because my guess is, I don't know what if I divided, let me get my calculator out here. What is 1 billion? Ooh, that's a lot of zeros. Oh, my calculator doesn't do a billion. It only does 100 million. Freaking Apple.
What do you have, like a TI 81?
Okay, so what did I say? I think it was like 172 divided by 172 houses. So average. Okay, that's not right. Whatever. I'm gonna skip over that. Delete this out. My math's wrong. But my point being is, it's
Luke, drop it. Josh, cut that.
Steven,
out.
cut that out, dog. Cut that out. Anyhow. So it speaks to the fact, okay, so Tesla, say, I don't know what they're spending, but let's hypothetically say it's $1 billion on real estate. It's probably not. It's probably like $500 million or whatever. But let's just say $1 billion, round it up, $1 billion on real estate for their employees. So yes, they're doing it for their employees because they need people to be able to live and stuff. But really, is it an investment? Because it's also in the same rolling 12 months that JP Morgan Chase said they're going to drop $1 billion in real estate, and other banks, people that haven't typically invested in real estate are investing, and they're not like doing like 30, 40, 50 big, billions, big chunks of money, but it's like, $1 billion. I'm doing $1 billion. He's doing $1 billion. It's like a test, right? Where it's like a small, like you're saying, gain a little bit of margin while you can in this environment, which actually might result into a bigger margin because of market shifts, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a super big indicator, like a bullish indicator for real estate in general, is the fact that you have all these major players, these major for-profit players that are getting involved in residential real estate.
Yes. Single family homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because whereas like, I don't think the government necessarily has that much of a longer term view,
or the ability.
Just such a cluster,
could not do it.
Or the ability is too many, too many hands in there that aren't equally aligned. For-profit businesses are the opposite. Their goal is to make as much money as possible, and to do that over a very long period of time. So, if you have a long-term vision, you should do what a lot of these businesses are doing and look to acquire hard assets, because they are seeing, over the next, like they aren't making 3-year decisions.
Right.
Like they're not saying we're looking to buy this real estate so in 3 years we can have an exit. They're looking at 10, 15, 20-year projections on these things. And, that's kind of like a lot of people, they try to find their secret sauce about how they're going to make their money. Honestly, if you just copy what successful people are already doing, whether that's like investing or that's in, business or whatever, you will ultimately be successful if you have the same time frame as them and you execute even like a little bit similarly to what they're doing.
Right.
That's why, what do they call it? Like the Warren Buffett effect? Like there's like whole funds that literally all they do is they just buy whatever Warren Buffett
They just follow
buying.
him. Yep.
right? Which makes sense. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? He's the most successful investor ever. Just mimic him, and assuming that he maintains his track record, which he probably will, you will do okay.
Yes. It makes me think on this topic too, with other players kind of coming in with money into the single family residential real estate. What does that speak to the forecasts and expectations for inflation? Because the inflation numbers, people are saying they're getting better, but like, where is better versus good versus best? Is it going to be like 2 years at like 5% inflation? Because 5% inflation, people would be like, okay, I can stomach that. It's better than 9%. Right. And so like, I think about that when you're talking about investing in real estate. What is a great hedge for inflation? Real estate, right? It's an asset that is protected against inflation because it's going to go up with inflation. And so if there's an appreciation plus inflation on top of that, you're likely going to have a pretty good return. And people may not want to invest in the bond market or have their money sitting in some sort of cash reserves or short-term reserves where they're thinking, well, let's just put it into real estate. In probably high or going to be higher demand markets like the Southeast, like Texas, like Austin, those sorts of places, which is where you see some of these banks saying they're starting to dump some money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're already starting to see that, not even just in the real estate itself, but in large increases in like a wider range of real estate-based products. So I'm currently in the process right now of trying to buy the short-term rental down in Austin, Texas. And in the process, I've been, connecting with a bunch of different lenders. Getting a loan for me is extremely difficult when it's like not a cash property or like a rental property, right? And because I'm doing it as a 1031, I'm trying to do it more traditionally just to make things a little bit simpler, like longer term. And I'm talking to these lenders, and there's all these very wide-ranging products that did not really exist even a couple of years ago. And I think a lot of it is due to people trying to counteract inflation, or like these lenders being less interested in having money with the government and in like the treasury bills and the bonds and all that sort of stuff they typically hold. So I've talked to several banks now, like local banks that have DSCR loans. Which is very weird. Like in the past, that was always like a private institution, a hedge fund or something like that. Like I had never heard of, I don't know if this has always been common in Texas, buying stuff up here in Washington. I've never ran into a bank that would do a DSCR loan. They would do a portfolio loan, right? Yep. But on those, they still want to look at, it's like a commercial loan. It's a 10-year balloon, has like an adjustable rate, all sorts of things. These are 30-year fixed DSCR loans based on the performance of the asset with like actual financial institutions as opposed to just like hedge funds.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm seeing those a lot. And then also too, a lot of these different products that they're having that are, if you're buying stuff like, and this is for investors, right? So they're basically saying, I'm willing to bet right now on investors more so than the government. But if you're bringing a significant down payment to like lower your 30-year interest rate, actually giving investors lines of credit back on their properties at like a pretty significant rate at the purchase price. And I know some people have talked about that like in different realms for a while, but usually it's like they'll do it up to like 70% or like 75%, whatever, if you're putting like 50% down. But some of these lenders are willing to do it up to like 90, like a home loan.
Heck yeah.
I'm
down with that.
But it's only on the purchase. So like if you tried to do it after the fact, they wouldn't like it. But they say they will stack it on so it makes it the same as if it was like a 10% down loan. You still have to bring a significant amount down for the initial down payment, but at the purchase date, they will give you that line of credit out to 90%.
Wow,
which is all new stuff. And like again, I apologize if I'm ignorant to that, and that's something that's been in Texas for a while, just because they're super pro-capitalist. But up here in Washington, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I've never had to run into that. Have you seen? Sorry, this is a little side tangent here, but have you seen this method that people teach? I just have been opened up to it. I've never heard of this in my life. It still doesn't make sense, which is getting a line of credit, a HELOC against your house, right? So say, for example, like you have like 50% equity in your home. Go and get that 90% line of credit, like up to 90% LTV line of credit. Taking that line of credit balance and literally writing a check to yourself, and then taking that check and writing it to your mortgage company to pay down your mortgage. And the idea behind that is that because the loan is amortized over 30 years or whatever, that by doing that, you'll be accelerating the pay down on that so much that you'll be putting way more towards principal than the interest is on the line of credit.
I see what you're saying, because the amortization, because with the amortization on a typical 30-year home loan, it's so much towards interest at the front end. So basically, the thought is you'll pay. Yeah, but like, I don't know.
It doesn't make sense.
What your 30-year note looks like.
What is?
Yeah, but it's because people are stupid.
Right.
Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you go and pull out adjustable rate debt on your house just to go and pay off your mortgage that you
I don't know. That's a good question too. Is it doesn't have to be adjustable, because once you pull it, you could lock it, and then you could choose to amortize that over like I know on my line of credit I can amortize over 10 years. So now you're amortizing that same debt over a shorter period of time, and as long as they give you a favorable interest rate, like. I guess here's the thing. I haven't done the math. If somebody out there is smart and wants to do the math and show us, please let me know. Like, I would not do this method, but if the math proves it and there's like low risk, then okay, I'll high five the dude that came up with this method.
Well, because basically what they want to try to do is they're saying that you will save money by paying less interest on your primary home. You're paid on principal faster. But I also don't care about that.
Me neither.
Because I have opportunity with my money.
Yes.
And I think instead of like trying to piece together all this shit, take that HELOC, go and use it to buy 4 other properties.
Yes.
And then your ROI will be significantly higher than dumping it into your primary residence you're probably going to move out of in 7 years anyway.
Right. Yeah, I've never been an advocate like paying off your house unless you're like retired and you really just don't want to have the headache of writing a check because you're traveling and doing such cool stuff. But like, I would never want to pay off my mortgage.
Yeah. That sort of stuff though, like, I mean, I don't know. I apologize if people are into that. That's like chump.
It's
money.
just like
that's like for suckers. Well, it is, and it's like a broke mindset, honestly, because it is like that. You always see these little hacks that people do, like this is how you can save money.
Pay an extra mortgage payment a year, and it'll pay off your mortgage 3 years faster, something like that, 7 years faster.
Yeah, if people spent the time that they like, the mental time and the mental bandwidth that they put towards doing things like that, towards like learning how to make more money and learning how to grow their skills. There is a much higher ceiling than there is a floor. Right. Like you can only save so much. You can only hack so much. And even though it might feel significant to you, where you're at, realize the earning potential is literally unlimited.
I kind of want to,
like 2020.
Sorry, I kind of have this like thing I want to do. Like, I don't know. Let me throw this out there to this cyber world. So what if I hired a VA for like $5 an hour, hypothetically, hired a VA for $5 an hour to take off like, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours of workload off of me a week. And then I took that 3 to 5 hours extra and tried to go make $10,000 doing something else, or 20,000 or 50,000. I don't know. I feel like that would be an interesting science project here.
I mean, that's literally the definition of having an assistant, is it frees up your time to
exactly.
to go and do.
But you know what I mean? Like
that's delegation.
Yeah, no, but you're talking about like if you're taking that same brain power, and if you were, instead of that same brain power, like think about it in the context of what are you doing in your week, and the average person can probably find 3 to 5 hours a week without even actually hiring a VA. But say you want to hire a VA 3 to 5 hours a week, say 5, that's $25 a week. And then now go with the purpose, go try to make $10,000.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, again, this is what people will say. They will say, A, I don't have things to delegate, which is a lie. Everyone does. Yeah. B, they don't want to pay $25 a week. C, they don't know how to make $10,000.
Yeah, I don't know how to do any of that right now, but I bet you I could do it by the end of this call and come up with a plan.
I bet if you had, let's say we're currently February 16th, I bet this would actually be a really interesting thing. We should see if we could do this. We could say like, okay, maybe like we'll do like a challenge. We'll say, all right, we have March 1st. We both have to figure out how to make $10,000 outside of real estate by the end of the month.
We just came up with this on our own right here, listeners. This is...
Yeah. I don't have the capacity to do it right now because we were in growth mode with the business, but we should seriously, we should make a note of this and do it in like the fall, because that would be sick. Yeah. I think that'd be a really interesting experiment of like, we have to do something that's outside of our business, outside of real estate, outside our skill set, and figure out how to make $10,000 in a month. See if we can do it.
That's fun. I like it. All right.
Yeah. So we'll call it the $10,000 challenge. So if you guys want to be a part of the $10,000 challenge, you can submit your application to collectingkeyspodcast.com/challenge.
Dude.
And we can make it a community event where everyone has to go in, and you're going to make outside your skills. They have to make $10,000 in a month.
And then whoever makes Well, no, I was gonna say if you had 10 people and whoever made the most gets everybody's profits. So you get 100,000.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Oh man, I like this challenge.
That's actually a good idea. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think though, like, to be fair, joking aside, I do think that when you have the entrepreneur mindset and you have that abundance mindset, that isn't unfathomable. Like, I'm fairly confident I could do it.
I know I 100% could do it in many different ways. And I think about bringing this up speaks a lot to the folks that are like, I work a W-2, I'm doing 50, maybe 60 hours a week in my W-2. I just don't have time, but I really want to invest in real estate. I really want to start going off market. Like, you have time. And you can even if you were working 60 hours a week, you could still run this business. You could still figure out how to make $10,000 extra a year. $10,000 extra a year, making that in your W-2 might be impossible. Might not even ever be possible, right?
Yeah.
But doing it outside of that job and doing it yourself as an entrepreneur, whether it's real estate or not, it's so much easier. So much easier.
It is, yeah. And I mean, there's the basic general skills that you learn, right? Learning how to, like, do basic lead generation, spot opportunities, close deals. I mean, I've made small, like, not insignificant amounts of money, just even doing super basic stuff. Like, like I had someone a little while ago that was like, hey, I heard that you were doing some stuff in Chicago. I'm interested in deals there. And I was like, oh, well, we shut down Chicago. But I have like 300 leads. Do you want to buy them? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, well, what's your average cost per lead? They're like, about $80. I was like, I'll sell you these leads right now for like $40 per. And
deal.
You can just have them. And he was like, yeah, done. So we did it, and I made $500 or whatever it was.
Yeah. I mean, like that. Here's what.
And it's mutually beneficial exchange of value,
Exactly.
right? Like I found his need. Right, he wanted the opportunities. I knew what his cost was. I said, I'll give this to you at a discount. He said, that sounds great. Done. Simple.
We're going to start a discount lead broker company.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, the problem is, like, if you look at it face value, it's actually a loss to us.
Right.
If you look at our cost per lead, but at the same time, it's not.
We'd already spent the money, though. It didn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's a spent thing. But if you were doing that, trying to do that business where you're paying for the leads to sell,
right,
it would be a very bad business.
Oh man. Yeah.
So anyway, but since it's a real estate show, I want to touch on real estate a little bit. We had some good general economic talk in there. Yeah, I mean, business is going well though for us. We have 8 closings already done for the year so far. And we currently have 7 more set to close here over the next couple of weeks. So I'm hoping by end of February, early March, we should already be at 15 closings for the year, which is pretty. Like that's a pretty solid start, especially coming out of the slow end of 2022.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that, and we had a great reminder this past week and a bit about how no matter how long you've been in this business, there's always new stuff that comes up. So we have this deal that we've been dealing with out in Detroit, where the whole thing was mind-boggling to me. So we had like in the middle of it, like how these people got in the situation was they went to like one of those seminars like 10 years ago where they're like, yeah, we're going to teach you how to increase your credit card limit and then pay us a bunch of money. And then you're going to buy these shitty houses for way more than they're actually worth in a horrible town that's just collapsed. But these people, they bought into the dream. They have powerful speakers. They do whatever and they buy into it. So anyway, fast forward, we had this seller. She lives in Massachusetts. She owns this property in Detroit that she has never seen. Okay, she's never even like seen photos or anything of it. She just got like, here's why it's a good deal. This is why you should buy it. So she bought it, okay, for I don't know, it was like $40,000 or something. Maybe it was like less than that, $35,000. And when she bought it, the property was not rented like it was supposed to be. It was actually in pretty poor conditions. All issues with it. And she paid on it for a while as a liability, but eventually just stopped paying. Right? Just saying like, cool, I'll let the lender take it back. I'll just have it be foreclosed on. We go and we look. She still has title to the property. She stopped paying like 3.5 years ago.
Gosh.
Right? But the lender never foreclosed. And we're like, what is this situation? So then we turn around and we find out that it was actually sold on a seller finance by somebody else who was in part of the same seminar. And basically the pitch was, oh yeah, you'll buy this house for, more than it's worth. You'll sell it to this person for more than it's worth. And you'll be the bank for them. And they're like a credible borrower, quote unquote. So you'll make money. and it's going to be secured by real estate, and you won't have to be a landlord. So, what they did is they probably found the people that had the money. They said, who wants to be a landlord? Who doesn't? Here's ways that we can extort money from both of them and have a profit spread on the middle. And if you look at the paper trail, the company that they bought it from bought the house for like $5,000 and sold it to them for like $40,000, like, 3 weeks later. Like, it's just outrageous.
So they go and find these cheap, shitty houses, sell them for cheap prices to other people that think they're cheap, and then those people sell them for less cheap again on seller financing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's like this whole hierarchy of just bullshit that goes on. But anyway, so what we had to do is we connected with this seller, seller financee, this lender, right? And said, hey, so we're trying to buy this house. We need a payoff statement for it. I know you haven't paid. She hasn't paid for 3 years. So what's the deal? And the lady basically came back and she was like, oh man, like these people that I worked with, my son was killed in Afghanistan in like 2012. And I gave them all of my money to buy these houses. And she has shit tons of them, right? All the money from the government that she got for her son being killed, put them in these houses. She's like super upset on the phone. Anyway, because she was worried about losing the principal on the loan, she didn't know how to foreclose, right? She was just never educated on that process. So for the last years, she has been paying the taxes. She has been paying like the city penalties for like lawn maintenance. She's been doing all this sort of stuff. So she's now owed like $85,000 on this property.
Oh my
gosh. It's only worth like $45,000.
Ugh,
right?
That sucks.
So she's completely screwed. The seller that we're working with is willing to get rid of the house. The lender wants their money back. We couldn't, we had to sort of negotiate there. But ultimately, we had to have two sales sides. We had to get the lender to accept a payoff for 50% of their debt, and we had to have a seller be willing to accept a price for less than the property is worth, even though it is in bad condition. And of course, none of them were happy with it.
No.
Everyone is losing in the situation. And just because of the nature of it, the deal is so tiny, it's almost not even worth our time. But at this point, it's the principle of like, all these people are screwed.
Yeah.
Like, we might as well at least help them out and get the deal done.
I wonder if this seminar company is still around. That's terrible.
So I forget the name of the people. When I talked to the original seller, she gave me like the name of them. And they're like big names that are on HGTV and all these sort of things that ran it. So like, I can't remember. I'll have to look.
I don't know their names.
But it's probably in the notes in our CRM.
Is it Toric?
Yeah,
is it Toric?
I have no idea. It's some couple. It's some couple where like she's like blonde and and they like have like the whole look and it's just nauseating, but people eat it up. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. It's probably Toric and his wife. Don't you remember them on HGTV?
Well, there's
I think they were Flip or Flop. They were the Flip or Flop people.
Yeah. It wasn't them. It was different.
Yeah, they're out of California.
Yeah, but anyway, so this whole situation, I'm like, I've never seen this before where so many people were victimized by this third party.
Bad.
And the paperwork mess, because there's all these issues with the county we have to figure out, the issues with the lender, getting the payoff, getting the sales process done on both sides. And our total margin on it's like $2,500. So like we're basically just making enough for our sales guy to get paid and then a tiny bit to cover cost of marketing. But hey, at least they'll be able to move on with their life.
Well,
so
we did definitely help both parties in this case because that's just a crappy situation. It sucks that they got screwed like that.
Yeah. But we've just been, you can never expect these things either. No. It's crazy. But I do think that the nature of these deals is where wholesalers can make their money. Because sure, this one was small, but we've also had similar ones like this, like that aren't quite this messy, but we make like $20,000 on a house that a realtor would never touch. So like we did a house that has similar sort of baggage. It's a $37,000 purchase. And it was the kids owned it and there was all this nonsense. There's squatters and all these things. And we were able to make $20,000 on the property. And one of the reasons they called us was because they had been trying to list the house with a realtor for like years. And realtors were like, nah, I don't want my name on that to make a $900 commission. Like that's
unfortunate because that's the truth. They're not going to make much money on anyways.
Yeah. So, it's just been an interesting lesson of, I guess like a reminder of if you want to be successful in this business, you have to be willing to have hard conversations and solve these problems, and solve these kind of problems and like put in that additional legwork.
Yes.
Like a lot of people think like, oh, I get a contract with the seller, I turn it over to my TC and everything's good. My transaction code, everything's good. But that's not how it works. It's fully relationship based. And I think that you could have probably gotten away with that in like 2013. Yeah. Back before everything got, so digitized and there was all these whiteboard bros out here talking about how you can make real estate money, but
never actually doing it themselves, right?
Never actually doing it themselves, but now you actually have to get your hands dirty with these deals. So it's an interesting sort of story there for everybody. But yeah, besides that, stuff's rocking, man. I feel like we're in a pretty good place, and we are actively bringing on new partnership clients. Our mastermind, our instant investor program has some good growth, some good activity going. Overall, I'm just excited for how this year is painting together.
People that have been involved and are getting involved in Q1 of 2023 are certainly seeing the benefits from my perspective, whether they're in our group coaching program or our partners or our clients coming on. It's like they are winning right now.
They really are. I mean, like our top partnership that we work with in Augusta, they just closed a $125,000 deal. Yeah. Right? $125,000 wholesale deal.
$250,000 for the year already.
Yeah, he's already had $250,000 for the year. And this is a dude that back in 2019 was a engineer, and he was making what he said, like $60,000 a year.
Nuclear test
and he just
engineer
basically
for the government.
Yeah, and he just like tripled his annual salary in 2 months working with us in our partnership program.
Sweet.
So it's funny, and like as we've been doing this business long enough, honestly, I get more excited about like people that are part of our partnership group or they're in our mastermind do well, even than us closing deals, because for us it's an expectation. Yes. So I just love to see other people succeed.
See the light in their eyes that they can make $10,000 on their own.
Exactly. I like that idea, man. We're gonna bring that back around. I think that's super interesting. But cool. All right, guys. CollectingKeysPodcast.com/challenge if you want to be a part of the $10,000 challenge here in the next 6 months. Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening. We really appreciate you all. We have had some really incredible growth of the podcast since the year started, and I am so excited for everything to come. So if you want to help us continue with that growth, please continue sharing this with everybody that you know. Send them to our YouTube page. Send them to our, whatever podcast platform they use. Tell them look up the Collecting Keys podcast. Even better yet, have them leave a 5-star review, because that helps us grow even more. So appreciate you all listening. Besides that, guys, if you want to get your free guide to start generating off-market leads, go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free, and you can get our free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads, which will give you the basic framework for our business. Besides that, I think that's kind of all of our call to actions right now. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming on. So subscribe to the show, guys. Keep sharing it, and thanks for listening. Talk to y'all next week.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.